Right now, in a facility outside Shanghai, a Chinese company is pulling carbon dioxide straight out of the open air and turning it into jet fuel. No oil well, no crude tanker, no drilling rig. Just air, water, and electricity walking out the other side as kerosene and aircraft can actually burn. It sounds like a magic trick, and for a long time, that is exactly how the fuel industry treated it. So, how do you build jet fuel out of thin air? And why are the people who sell the world its fuel suddenly paying very close attention? Start with what jet fuel actually is. Strip away the branding, and a barrel of kerosene is mostly two ingredients, carbon and hydrogen, locked together in long chains. Crude oil is just those chains, buried underground for a few 100 million years, waiting for us to pump them up and refine them. That is the entire fossil model. Dig up ready-made carbon chains, clean them, sell them, burn them. Now here is the idea China is chasing. If jet fuel is only carbon and hydrogen, then you do not actually need the oil well. You need a source of carbon, a source of hydrogen, and a way to snap them together. So you take carbon dioxide, the same gas coming out of every chimney and drifting in the air around you, and you use that as your carbon. You take plain water and split it apart with electricity, which hands you the hydrogen. Then you run both through a reactor that stitches those atoms into the exact same kerosene molecule a jet engine already knows how to burn. Think of it like building fuel out of spare parts. Carbon from the air, hydrogen from water, sun and wind to power the whole thing. What comes out the far end is chemically identical to jet fuel. The plane cannot tell the difference. The only thing that changed is where the carbon came from. If it were as simple as that sounds, we would have been flying on air-made fuel decades ago. So here is the hard part, the part that kept this locked in the lab. Every single step on that chain is starving for energy. Pulling carbon dioxide out of open air is slow and costly because the air is only just over 400 parts per million carbon dioxide, so you are sifting through a mountain of nothing to collect a little something. Splitting water into hydrogen swallows huge amounts of electricity. And the stitching step, the chemistry that turns loose atoms into aviation-grade kerosene, needs precise catalysts to land on jet-sized molecules instead of a useless soup. Here is the detail almost everyone missed. Those are exactly the problems China has spent the last 10 years learning to solve at industrial scale. Splitting water needs machines called electrolyzers, and China now builds around 60% of every electrolyzer on Earth, according to the International Energy Agency. It has the cheapest solar and wind power anywhere, which is the electricity that feeds those machines. Its working green hydrogen capacity already runs past 250,000 tons a year, with over 1 million tons more built or under construction. So the two most brutal inputs, clean hydrogen and cheap power, are the exact two things China already makes better and cheaper than anyone else. And the chemistry itself is no longer the real sticking point. Chinese state labs have already published catalysts that turn carbon dioxide into the long carbon chains jet fuel needs, with high precision, so the science mostly works. What is left is scale. Which brings us back to that facility outside Shanghai. A company called Carbonology finished a 100-ton test line in January of 2026 that captures carbon straight from the air and turns it into aviation fuel. In June, it broke ground on a bigger pilot out in Ningxia, and it is already planning a 10,000-ton commercial plant for 2027. Small numbers, for now. Hold on to that phrase. So why would a 100-ton test line matter to the biggest industry on the planet? Because of what it threatens, and who suddenly needs it. China imports around 74% of the oil it burns. It is the largest oil importer in history, hauling in roughly 11 million barrels every single day, much of it from Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Russia, shipped through narrow sea lanes a rival navy could choke off in a crisis. For Beijing, every barrel it can build at home out of air and sunlight is a barrel it never has to buy, ship, or defend across contested seas. For the country that imports more oil than anyone, that is a strategic prize dressed up as a climate solution. Now widen the lens. Europe has already written synthetic fuel into law. Its new aviation fuel rules force airlines flying out of European airports to start blending in synthetic fuel from 2030, and that required share climbs toward 35% by 2050. So a legal wall of demand is forming, and somebody has to actually manufacture all of that fuel. Whoever learns to make it cheapest owns a market that governments are forcing into existence. And here is the part the fuel industry dreads. For 100 years, the business has run on one model. Find crude, pump it, refine it, sell it, everything. The wells, the tankers, the refineries, assumes the carbon starts in the ground. Fuel made from air throws that whole assumption out. You do not need a well in the Gulf if you can build the same molecule next to a solar farm in Inner Mongolia. The people who sell the world its fuel understand exactly what that would mean if it ever got cheap. Now the honest part, because this is where most breathless coverage stops being useful. Today, fuel from air barely exists. Those Chinese plants are measured in hundreds and thousands of tons, while China burns over 700 million tons of oil a year. So this is a raindrop next to an ocean. It is expensive, roughly 3 to 8 times the price of ordinary jet fuel, because you are spending a fortune in electricity to do what a drill used to do for almost nothing. The process only claws back about half the energy you feed into it, and most of the fuel China already calls sustainable today is just recycled cooking oil, nothing to do with pulling carbon out of the air. So if a skeptic tells you jet fuel from thin air cannot replace crude anytime soon, they are right, today. But hold on to that next detail, because it explains everything. We have watched this exact movie before. 15 years ago, solar power was a costly novelty, and plenty of people swore it could never carry a real grid. China went to work, and the price of a solar panel fell by about 90%. It did the same to batteries almost nobody could afford, driving those costs down by roughly 90% too. Then it did it a third time with electric cars, going from a country almost nobody bought cars from to the largest car exporter on Earth. Today it builds most of the world's solar panels, most of its batteries, and ships more cars abroad than any other nation. Each time, the story started the exact same way. People said it was too small, too expensive, and would never scale. So the reason the fuel industry is uneasy is not the pilot plant in Ningxia. It is that China has run this same playbook 3 times already, and it is now aiming the machine straight at oil itself. If you are the kind of person who likes to see these shifts coming while everyone else still calls them impossible, tracking exactly this pattern is the whole point of this channel. So the next time someone calls fuel from thin air science fiction, remember there is a plant outside Shanghai quietly doing it right now, and a country with every reason on earth to make it cheap. The only real question left is how fast. So here is mine for you. If China makes fuel from air cheaper than crude within 10 years, does the West catch up, or does it get left standing on the ground? Tell me what you think below.